And I want to share with you some insights that we've been able to gain about corals through the 100 Island Challenge, and probably more importantly, by being able to watch corals through time and across space to get some insights into what the corals themselves are telling us. If we know what they're telling us, we can work with them to try to find a way to improve these ecosystems. But to do that, we used advanced photogrammetric tools. We use this ability to take thousands of photographs and stitch them together. Through taking those photographs and stitching them together, we create not just a mosaic, but a 3D model of that coral reef environment. When we started to see this in higher resolution, broader scale, and 3 dimensions, we get to see the profound nature of change of this reef environment. Not just did some topical corals change, but the entire 3-dimensional structure of the system was lost. Where that coral existed became a valley. You had an ecosystem that was vibrant and chasing the sunlight and growing upwards, and today we have a system that's regressing downwards. This is a big challenge we have for management, it's a big challenge we have for conservation, and it's an opportunity for restoration. We don't realize that a lot of the systems, when we look at a single photo, don't represent the entire landscape. And there's an opportunity for us to leverage new technologies to be able to see at a broader scale, to be able to capture more of what's happening in a single reef, and importantly, to be able to share that knowledge amongst colleagues. So we're looking forward to doing that more today and in the days ahead. If I tell you a story, it only counts as much as you see it in your own brain. But if you get to see that environment, you learn more. And even just this ability to see a coral reef environment at broad scale in a way that captures the entire ecosystem can transform people's belief systems. We were starting work in the Republic of Palau, and we went to visit the governor of Peleliu State, Temi Shul, and asked him for permissions to work in his state's waters. The posters looked just like this, saying this was before we had cheap mobile devices. And he took a step back and paused, and he said, "You know, I was raised a fisherman. The fish can tell me when there are enough of them and I can fish. And the fish tell me when they're not enough, and we stop. But the coral doesn't have a voice." He pointed at these posters and said, "This gives the coral a voice." For me, that was really important, and it still gives me the chicken skin. The bottom of the ocean has always been a habitat that we just expected to work well, and it's not right now. We've layered on too many stressors, and we're watching coral bleaching. We're watching diseases spread, and we're trying to find ways to mitigate it. We have to give those corals a voice to be able to learn what they can do so that we can manage the corals to try to improve tomorrow. If we take a 4-dimensional view through a coral reef, 3 dimensions of the reef, and then we have time, in this case, 5 different years, and we watch what each coral colony is doing. You could just track what's happening with one coral and then imagine what happens tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. This is the same plot through time. Let me share more about this. Okay, we can take these same images, we go through time and look at the same plot, and in this case, we just color-coded all new 3-dimensional volume in green. So this is growth. Everything that you see is green is growth. Everything you see in red is death, or at least lost volume. We used to just study change based on percent cover, and we still do, and we still should. What we can see is if we look across particular locations, the percent coral cover maybe doesn't change too much. But does that mean that every coral isn't changing? No way. And there's a lot of variation that's happening across in each one of these locations. Yes, we saw that one case study in Moorea of that rapid growth, but that's not the typical change. It's okay if a lot of your corals die in your nursery, because they do. The flip side of that is look for the ones that are growing really fast. Look for the ones that have the variation that we care about. These general patterns can be summarized, and we can start to think about what is the typical syndrome we're seeing from site to site to site. This variation is to be expected. And our target now is to try to learn from the natural rates of variability and to start thinking, what are the levers, what are the knobs, and what are the opportunities that we have to manipulate coral behavior, or at least coral communities, to try to get things to work a little bit better. I'd like to argue that the one biggest thing that I have learned from the 100 Island Challenge is that corals are fighting. If we look across the globe from site to site, I don't care which location I go to, I see individual corals that are trying to face tomorrow in an interesting new way. I thought it was said well that our goal of restoration is not to try to get back to yesterday, but to improve for tomorrow. I'd like to just think about that slightly quantitatively, that our goal for restoration is to enhance the recovery mechanisms, to quantitatively turn up the number that survive, the number that grow, the rate at which they grow. But our goal is not to replace recovery mechanisms. We need to be working with the ecology that these fascinating organisms have presented to us. And if we can increase the probability of survivorship by 10%, if we can increase growth by 30%, if we can find ways in our natural ecosystems to enhance the demographic capabilities of our corals, then we've done our part. So please, and especially those of you who are getting into the field right now, which it may be viewed as a very sad time, where coral trends tend to be decreasing, just think of it this way, that if the trend goes down, the trend can be reversed and we can pick it back up. And if we as a group can help to turn those trends around and to increase the growth rate a little bit, that what we end up with is a reef with a little bit more coral next year, a bit more in 10 years. If we get the survivorship to increase a bit, each of those 10% demographically really add up. So please focus your efforts on the successes. Trust that the corals have a lot of variability, and recognize that your location is interesting and specific, and you can learn from one another. From geography to geography, there are many lessons that we need to be exchanging.